It's Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance inside the beautiful state capitol in Michigan in Lansing. We are joined by Margaret O'Brien. She is a member of the Michigan State Senate, and recently she had the honor of meeting a beautiful young girl. Her name is Khalees Manning from your hometown of Kalamazoo. Tell us all about this, Angel.
Well, you know, they were honoring people who have done something beyond what's expected of them. And Khalees's mother had passed out, and Khalees called...
And she was pregnant, by the way.
She was pregnant, yes, thank you. And Khalees called 911 and was able to direct the officers to their house. So her mom and her newborn sibling, they were both safe, they were able to be healthy. And so her actions led to her mother living and her sibling living.
Khalees, 4 years old.
4 years old.
4 years old, had the presence of mind to know something was going on. I guess her mom had a seizure.
She did.
I just, the little ones, you just don't know where they get that strength. And through that, you learned about a program that could provide the 911 operators with information that could make that call all the more productive. I had no idea about Smart 911. I'm so glad you're here to tell us about it.
Well, the Smart 911, when we had the shootings in Kalamazoo County, the mass shooting spree, a conversation really started about how do we keep our community safe? What are some of the tools? And Smart 911 is a program that's used by some counties in Michigan, but it's not throughout our state, and it's only by 2 states in the country, 2 other states. And what it is you as a resident could put as much or as little information into the system as you want, so that when an emergency responder is dispatched to your house, what do you want them to know?
In advance.
In advance, and you can change this daily, your profile. So if you have a grandma who lives with you and is mobility impaired and there's a fire in your house, if you put that information in there, then the firefighters would know there's a mobility impaired person who lives in the house, and you can even say first floor bedroom, and they would be able to do a very targeted search versus their standard search. In the case of Khalees, they could have put in mom is pregnant and known all this information up front. And so the goal here is to be able to arm our first responders with as much information as possible so that they can do everything up front to better help your family.
You can give health information, floor plans, access codes, pets. I mean, we love our pets, and if there's a fire, they don't know the pets are inside, and when appropriate, they could save the animal.
Exactly.
When is this rolling out? I mean, this needs to go nationwide.
Well, we provided a full $2.2 million appropriation in the Senate budget. In the House budget, they had a little bit lower number.
Okay.
So during conference committees, when we're negotiating our differences, my hope is we'll get the full $2.2 million, because then we can take this statewide. Yes, that's all to have this go statewide.
In the scheme of things, it doesn't seem like, I know, look, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money, you know, when you think about the budget. So you're feeling positive.
I'm feeling positive. Both the House and Senate have identified it's a priority. I just want to make sure that we have the entire state covered with this service.
I must ask you how your community is doing, given the tragedy in Kalamazoo with the Uber situation. First of all, I am so very sorry that your communities had to suffer through this. How are you all doing?
You know, we are doing amazingly well. Obviously, we had families who lost a loved one. And the Smith family lives in Kalamazoo County, lost both dad and son. But they have been amazing at turning this tragedy into a positive legacy of their loved ones, to make sure they're remembered for the positive things about who they were, not what took them from this world. And so they've been wonderful when it comes to looking at having different emergency alerts, which had passed out of the House. It's in the Senate, where you could have alerts about that there's a shooter going on with the Smart 911. But then we still have 2 fighters who are fighting for their health. Tiana Crothers, who lives in Kalamazoo County, she was shot multiple places and has a long road to recovery, but her positive spirit has really come to carry her a long way. And in fact, she was just on the Steve Harvey show.
Oh, you're kidding.
Where she talked about she just can't have hate towards this man who do it. And what a positive message that is for us, that you got to have that positive spirit to carry forward. And then Abigail Koff, who lives in Calhoun County, she just had skull surgery, and she's doing amazingly well. For people who thought she may never make it, to now she can walk, she can communicate, just had some major skull surgery so that she'll have long-term health. It's amazing, these 2 women, how they're fighting, and they're really showing our community that there is hope.
I want to talk about other folks to whom we fight for. and that is veterans. I have known you for some time, and you are a fighter for our vets like I have never seen. You're chair of Senate Veterans Affairs, and you have been working to just make veterans' lives that much more easy. And I think it's okay to say that. And you have worked on several bills in the Senate to provide that assistance. Let's talk about some of them, if you don't mind. One of them, which you sponsored, it's the little things, but it matters, exempting veterans from licensing fees for service dogs. Tell us about that.
Well, I worked with Senator Kniezek, and the issue here was that veterans are often coming back from war, and they have traumatic brain injuries. So from the outside, they may look like nothing's wrong.
Of course.
But they actually do have a lot of health issues, and it's coming from the brain being injured. And they would walk into different stores or restaurants or be out in the community, and they have a service dog, but because they didn't have a visible wound, people were questioning whether or not we needed it. So as we looked into this legislation, we joined forces with Representative Rutledge, Representative Barrett, and we started looking at it, and actually in Michigan we had no registry for any service animals. And so what started off as a veterans issue really was able to help anyone who needs a service animal, which can be a dog or a certain type of breed of horse, believe it or not.
Okay, who knew, right?
Miniature horses, and really so that they don't have to be questioned. They can get a patch from the state. They can get an ID card that shows that this is an actual service animal, and that they have the right to take it anywhere where service animals are allowed to go, which is everywhere.
Right.
And so really it's taking away the questions.
And so you're expanding the law to allow service animals to be in more pervasive use. And I also understand that some of your colleagues are including legislation to increase or create penalties if you start harassing a dog, injuring a dog. Are those marching forward nicely, those pieces of legislation?
Yes, we wanted to make sure that we're treating the animal exactly as they should be treated, which is an assistance to a person. So, but we also wanted to make sure people weren't trying to act as though they needed a service animal. So we also put penalties in so that people were not violating the law. And it's really important to know that there's a lot of folks out there who have invisible wounds that we can't see, and you just don't know what that service animal can do. And the service animals are really trained for the individual, and it's been amazing to see with all the different people I've met, whether they were veterans, they were born blind, or became blind throughout their life, what that dog is able to do. It could be somebody who has seizures, and the dog's able to sense a seizure well before it ever comes. It can be people who come back and are unable to handle all the stimulus of everyday life, and the dog is able to calm them down and knows how to do it. It's amazing what these animals can do, and they really are in tune with the person.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the situation in Grand Rapids with our veterans there. What can you tell us about what's going on?
The good news is I think we have all the problems identified. The audit was horrible. It was unacceptable. And our veterans deserve better.
What did you think when you heard the results of the audit? I mean, that must have been so very frustrating.
I was very angry when I started getting an inkling that the audit wasn't going to go well. And I started doing a research into public documents and saw there had been some issues for quite some time. I wish I could say it's just been the last few years, but it actually had been longer than that, and it was pervasive, not through just private contracted employees, but also some of our state employees. And we have people, both private workers and state workers who work in that home, that they want high standards.
Of course.
They want to serve the veterans the way they deserve to be served. And so it's really about righting the ship and making sure we have the policies in the place that regardless who your employer is, that you as a worker are supported in doing a great job for the veterans, and the veterans are supported in making sure we have a safe home for that, because it's a home.
And how long will it take for the recommendations to be adopted? Because in the end, we got to get moving.
You know, the vast majority of the recommendations have already been adopted, but it takes time. You know, to have positive, sustainable change for the long term, it's not going to happen overnight. So we have made strong progress. Things are going very well. There is some legislation moving through, including an ombudsman bill, having a separate ombudsman that reports to the legislature, not through the department where the complaints have been levied. So we do have legislative issues that are moving through the process.
Her name is Margaret O'Brien. She is a member of the Michigan State Senate. I'm Brad Pomerance, Charter Local Edition.